Good morning, good evening. It's exactly 2:30 and we are ready to start the webinar of today. I want to start with some practical stuff. So today's webinar is recorded. We have a Q&A possibility, so please post your questions in this Q&A box. Only questions will be handled, quotes will not be taken. You can upvote a question, so if you see a question which is likely more, please put on the thumb so we can handle or prioritize this question up front. We'll limit also the time for the Q&A in 5 minutes or 5 questions, depending the topic. Afterwards, you will receive the link with the presentations that are available and inclusive the recordings. We also have a disclaimer for the webinar, so view findings and publications of this webinar do not necessarily represent the views or policies of the AVERE or its individual participants or the other speakers. So today we have a program on the European Alternative Fuels Observatory, and I'm very pleased to introduce you the first speaker, Alexander Verdun. Alexander, welcome. Do you have a short introduction for us?
Yes, thank you, Philippe. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar organized jointly by the European Alternative Fuels Observatory, or in short, EAFO, and AVERE, one of the consortium partners working on EAFO. My name is Alexander Verdun, and I'm Policy Officer at the European Commission's Transport DG Move. I'm working on alternative fuels infrastructure policy, and amongst others, responsible for managing the European Alternative Fuels Observatory. For those of you who are not yet acquainted with EAFO, it is the one-stop shop for information on alternative fuels vehicles, alternative fuels infrastructure, and alternative fuel support measures. The observatory covers all EU member states, also the United Kingdom, EFTA and EEA states, as well as Turkey. It was set up in 2015 to support the Commission in the implementation of the then newly adopted Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive, as it was considered essential to have access to good quality and comprehensive data to monitor the progress and impacts of our, but also of the member state policies relating to alternative fuels. Since 2018, EAFO entered its second phase, and it has been gradually made more user-friendly, and it also targeted a wider audience. We are increasingly adding new features to EAFO, and I am actually delighted to say that we are now actively promoting those by means of these EAFO AVERE webinars, of which this is now the second in the series. In a few moments, Floris will give you an overview of the newest improvements and features on EAFO. Gathering data and presenting it in the most user-friendly way is just one of the tasks of the EAFO consortium. We have also tasked them to perform an analysis of the rich amount of data that is available on EAFO and to provide policy advice and recommendations on that basis. I am glad to announce that today we can share with you the preliminary results of 2 of those analyses. Firstly, ICCT, also a consortium partner, examined the development and evolution of the electromobility market based on the vehicle infrastructure data available on EAFO, while AVERE gathered data on recharging prices, both for home and public charging in different member states. Both papers will also soon be available on EAFO, but without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Floris Jousma to present the newest features on EAFO. Thank you, Floris.
Thank you, Alexander. Good welcome to all. My name is Floris Jousma. I'm working for AVERE Automotive, which is the lead partner in the consortium of this term of the EAFO. Thank you for your introduction, Alexander, and also Philippe for hosting this webinar together with us. What I would like to do for now is give you some updates of showing you what you can find on the EAFO website and the major changes that we had over the last few weeks and months. And to do that, I think it would be best if I would share my screen with you. And I will show it to you live on the web page. So if you have just one moment. So So you should now be able to see when it updates my my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so I think one of the major changes that we did, well, not really major, but one of the things you'll see immediately when you arrive on the eafo.eu website is that you'll see that we did a little bit of a redesign to make it look a bit more nicer, but also to have the latest news on top on EAFO. As you can see, for now, we have an interesting analysis, partly also written together with Bert Witkamp. But what we do almost every month is that we also have a newsletter and also sometimes an analysis with the latest updates. The rest of the site has also been updated a bit. It's now clear that over here you can sign up for a newsletter. And we have the latest news from EAFO now over here. And we have some external news feed here from Electrive, especially focused on the politics. Some other interesting updates that we did is two graphs that was asked for a lot. And I think most of you will be very happy to see that these have come online now. Is when you go to countries and then, for instance, European Union or the whole of Europe, is you'll see here that we have now two new graphs that show you an overview for all the countries. And it's about the alternative fuel vehicles. And below you'll find almost the same graph, but then for infrastructure. And if I can hide this, then yes. What you can do here is also, as always, you can use the filters on the top right to, for instance, select electricity. And what you'll also notice is that we now also, of course, already for some months have the 2020 data, and we added the Y to D so that it's clear that, of course, it's always year to date. So those two graphs are new. Another interesting graph that we have now is a graph that shows monthly registration numbers. If you would go to vehicles and fleet and then passenger cars, you'll find, of course, the graphs that were already there. And the ones that we've added is, for instance, this one showing the registrations and 1 passenger cars per month. So you now also see in this case, because I filtered on electricity, in the European, you'll see the amount of BEVs and the amount of PHEVs that have been registered per month for the last months up until May, which the data was just updated. So yeah, that's an interesting new graph to see. And as I also already pointed out on the new homepage, we have an interesting analysis written. If you would go to the homepage, you can read all about it. It's about the carbon intensity of the electricity supply and how that works out in our EVs. Going further, another thing that we started working on last year was about the national policy frameworks, which you can also find per country. For instance, let's take Germany. If you go to countries and a certain country, in this case Germany, you'll notice that here on the left, since last year, we have the national policy frameworks. What it shows is that you can have, let me start. Yeah. We did a bit of an analysis on the documents that we have received, where we note some highlights as well, which you'll find under downloads and highlights. You'll always find the document, the current NPF in the original language, and you'll find an English translation as well. And I have to add that at the moment, new NPFs have for most member states already been sent to the Commission, most of them in original language, and we're now in the process of translating, and as soon as those are all analyzed so that we have new highlights written as well. Then we'll update these on EAFO. So that's something we'll be busy with the upcoming months, or hopefully weeks. And what's also interesting to see is that we also have targets in progress, where we have added some of the most current or the most important at this moment infrastructure targets that have been sent by member states in their NPS. So we compare those with the current attainment. So there you can see, for instance, the amount of electricity charging points for, in this case, Germany, for 2020, that they have almost reached their target by now. So at the end of 2020, they probably will go over 100%. And of course, we have these for most countries. Fun fact, the Netherlands, for instance, is already over 300%, so doing pretty well, I guess. Then we have some other updates done to the fuel station map. And what you'll notice is that when we started with the fuel station map, we were first using another data source for the charge points, which was open source data from the Open Charge Map. And last year we have added the data from Eco Movement, which is now our primary data source, not only for the map showing the charging stations for the whole of Europe, but also for checking the data that we get, because we get data from different sources from all countries. So we can now cross-reference or cross-check data from different sources to give you the best, we think the best quality of data in Europe in charging points. What you also notice is that there is now a slider with which you can set the power in kilowatts between 0 and 500. We've also added the hydrogen stations. Well, apparently there aren't any in Brussels, but what you'll find here as well is that we have some filters, which is in line with the map from h2map.eu. So we are using their data because that's the official map from the SCHJU that are also continuing their project. They have the funding for the upcoming years. So that seems pretty safe. LPG, CNG, LNG road, that was already also there. And for shipping, we have LNG bunkering, onshore power supply for shipping as well. And what we did is that we've added the 10T layers on the map. So it would give some more insights on 10T layers, the 10T road structure compared to which charging infra, or in this case, for instance, hydrogen, is available. So that's pretty much about the updates that I wanted to give you. And I'm not sure, Philippe, if we would like to do a question round now or at the end.
We can do question and answer right now, but we don't have for the moment. So far so good. I see just one popping up now. Maybe you can take a look at it. So until the EU reaches the 100% green energy production mark, how should the energy used by rechargeable vehicles, battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids be counted as in terms of color, black, gray, green?
Well, it's actually, if you would look at the analysis that I showed you, that we wrote, we would actually have to look at, are we talking about zero emission from the tailpipe? Then of course, yeah, it's zero emission, but on the other hand, we of course have to look where's the energy coming from. And I think it's important to keep that separated in this case. So it's not really about, yeah. it's not really on the vehicles themselves. It's more like on the vehicles. And for instance, one could charge their vehicle at home with its own solar panels, and another one charges publicly, which might as well come from wind energy, or maybe it comes from a nuclear plant. It's all a European mix. So, but as I said, if you would read the analysis that's online, that would give you a lot more information on this topic.
Thank you. So far, so good. No further questions concerning the presentation. We can definitely take other questions at the end of the sessions or later on. I would like to go to our next speaker, Sandra. Are you ready to take over? We don't hear you yet. Sandra, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. As soon as, yeah, it's there if you put it in presentation mode. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the kind introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sandra Wappelhorst, and I'm working for the International Council on Clean Transportation in Berlin. And today I'm talking about the development of the electric passenger car market and the deployment of public charging infrastructure in Europe. And as Alexander noted before, the results are part of a policy paper that will be published in the near future on the EAFO website. And I would like to start out with the targets for the uptake of electric vehicles and public charging infrastructure based on the European Green Deal. So the European Green Deal, which was published in December last year, they are talking about 1 million public recharging and refueling stations by 2025, and about 13 million zero and low emission vehicles they're expecting on European roads. And the European Recovery Plan, which was announced the other months, they're still also talking about the installation of 1 million charging points. And these are the targets announced for the European member states. And the question is, where do we stand right now? And I'm focusing in my presentation on electric passenger cars and the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. And this is based on the data Floris just has shown from the EAFO webpage. So when we have a look at the development of the electric passenger car market in Europe, we see that it's still growing. So by the end of 2019, we had over 1.8 million electric passenger cars on European roads. And in terms of car registrations, we had a share of 3.6% in 2019. And this relates to the countries you see on the bottom of the figure. Those do represent the former 28 European member states and the countries of the European Free Trade Association that includes Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Switzerland. So altogether, you see here 32 countries. And when we have a look at the figure, the bars, the blue bars represent the electric passenger car fleet by country by the end of 2019. And the dark blue represents battery electric vehicles, and the light blue plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, and the red dots represent the share of new electric passenger car registrations in 2019. And when we have a look at the blue bars, we see that most electric cars are driven on roads in Norway. This is followed by Germany, the United Kingdom, France, the Netherlands, and Sweden. And this basically represents 80% of all electric vehicles driving on European roads or in these 32 countries. And in terms of share, Norway is also leading. 60% of new passenger cars that were registered were electric last year. This is followed by Iceland. They had 26% of new electric passenger car registrations, but this is a much smaller market. As you can see, the blue bar is not very high. We talk about 11,000 vehicles on the roads. We also had high numbers of new registrations in the Netherlands with 17%, also one of the larger markets by electric passenger car stock. And Sweden, we had a share of 13% new electric car registrations. And so in these countries, we have very strong incentive policies in place. In Norway, exemptions on VAT, no registration tax, so the cost advantage when comparing conventional and an electric car can be as high as like 14,000 or even more euros when purchasing a new car. And in the Netherlands, we also have very significant tax advantages on car purchase. So this relates to private purchases, but also in these countries, we have favorable tax breaks for privately using a company car, for example. So there are a lot of incentives in place in these countries and in these leading electric vehicle markets. And then on the right side, we see countries which had a lower uptake, around 1% in 2019. And you can hardly see the bars. That means that the passenger car fleet of electric vehicles is really small in this country. So about 1,000 on average, and these countries are situated in eastern part, northern parts, or south eastern parts of Germany, of Europe, like Bulgaria, Latvia, Croatia, Lithuania, Czech Republic, Poland, Estonia, Slovakia, or Greece. So here the uptake has not been as high as in the countries I've talked about before. So here I would like to show on the left side again the electric passenger car fleet, the development from 2015 until the end of March 2020. And on the right side, we see the public charging points, also the development from 2015 till the end of March 2020. And the countries that are displayed are the 10 countries that had the largest electric passenger car fleets in 2019. And the other 22 countries are subsummarized among others. And we can see that the electric passenger car stock has grown over the years. As said, by the end of 2019, we have 1.8 million on European roads, electric cars. And by the end of March, over 2 million. And when we have a look to the right, at the right figure, the public charging points also, they have increased at the same time. So we had about 60,000 public charging points by the end of 2015, and by the end of March 2020, we had about 240,000 public charging points. And similar as to the electric passenger car fleet, the charging points are very much concentrated in a few European countries only. So most, when we talk about the absolute number, most charging points are situated in Germany, United Kingdom, France, and the Netherlands. And this accounts for about 2/3 of all charging points available in European countries. But the main message is that this development, we see that the electric car market is growing, and at the same time, also public charging network, again, concentrated very much on a few markets so far. And I would also talk about very briefly about the key metrics for public charging, and the question of how much charging points are actually needed. So this figure, this overview looks a bit noisy. I'm just walking through it. So in the first column, we see the registration share of battery and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in 2019 in descending order. The highest share in Norway, as we see before, mostly battery electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles. And then what follows, the 4 following columns, are selected metrics for public charging infrastructure development. So the second column shows public charging points per million population, so the concentration of the network. And we can see that in the Netherlands, we have the highest concentration of public charging points, was almost 3,000. And this is followed by Norway and Liechtenstein, but Liechtenstein is a much smaller market, and also Luxembourg. So, but here we have large variations. We have also countries where we basically have no or just a very small amount of charges. They are more on the bottom of this column. Another metric would be the percent, which is fast public charging. And we can see that we have a high share of fast chargers in Iceland, almost 70%. Also have high numbers, for example, in Latvia or Lithuania. And then we have other countries, like in the Netherlands, where the share is below 2% of fast public charging. That means larger than 22 kilowatts. Then the fourth column shows fast public charging points per 100 kilometer highway. And again, we have the highest number in Norway, was about 650, followed by Iceland. They also have a dense network on highways with about 200 public charging points per 100 kilometer highway, and also in the United Kingdom, where we have over 100. And the last column shows the electric vehicles per public charging point, the ratio. And so it's the least favorable in Iceland. So there are over 60 electric vehicles have to share a public charge point. In Norway, it's just over 20, and also in Sweden. And now looking at the different metrics and the uptake of electric vehicles, we see a wide disparity, and we can also see that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. We're talking about what is the right number of charging points we need. So this also depends on various factors. So for example, the housing stock. So if we have countries, or talking about the city level, we are talking here about the country level, but where we have a high concentration of apartment buildings, that typically signifies less access to home charging, which means that more of other charging types will be needed. For example, in the Netherlands, we have a lot of curbside public charging, which is the main charging source. And at the same, so the ratio of electric vehicles per public charge point is quite high, and the network is very much concentrated or very dense, and less fast charging. So it's usually normal charging points that are made available. So also dependent on how much charging infrastructure is needed on the commuting patterns. So if we have places where we have a lot of people commuting, they might rather rely on workplace charging and not as much as on public charging. Also the vehicle mix is important. So battery electric vehicles require fast charging, while plug-in hybrid electric vehicles generally do not. So PHEVs might benefit more from workplace and public normal charging. For example, when we have a look at Sweden, where we have a high share of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles in the fleet, but also in terms of registrations in 2019, and they have at the same time a lower concentration of public charge points, a lower percentage of charging points being fast charging, and fewer charging points per 100-kilometer highway, and also a higher number of EVs per charging point. Another factor would be the amount of fast charging. So one fast charger can provide as much energy as many regular speed chargers. So places with a high ratio of fast charging may have a higher EV charger point ratio, and this, for example, would apply to Iceland, where we have almost 70% of public charging is fast charging. So there are different factors that basically depend on how much is necessary. So there's actually not the right metric or the right ratio. As said, it depends on different factors. And also we have to keep in mind that a lot of the charging is done at home or at work, and this will likely increase in the future. Nevertheless, it is important to extend the public charging infrastructure network, particularly in the transition phase, to increase visibility and increase consumer acceptance. And we also see that people, even when they have access to home charging, they still use public charging points. And now I'm coming to the end. What are the key findings? So the electric passenger car market continues to grow in Europe, with high uptakes very much concentrated on a few countries only so far. The electric vehicle market and public charging infrastructure has grown in tandem in the past, and we also see that for the individual markets. We have a wide disparity in electric passenger car uptake and charging points among European countries. And as said before, there's no one-size-fits-all solution about the number of charging points needed. Very much depends on the framework conditions in the country, or even at city level. Are we talking about cities or rural areas? Depends on the housing stock, for example, commuting patterns, also travel patterns, vehicle mix, or the amount of fast charging. And when we come back to the initial slide about the targets, so that was just to get a feeling what is the target as formulated by the European Commission. And this is only about the passenger car stock, and we already see that we have continuously growing numbers, which is very much also supported in the key markets by policies and incentive policies that very much drive the market. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. I have one question that popped up in the Q&A for you. So I don't know if you can answer it, or one of the other consortium partners. So considering the registration share of EVs in 2019, which is now 3.6%, can a phase-out target of internal combustion engines set by many EU national governments be realistically met? Moreover, there are clearly very high differences in EV uptake between Northern and Southern Europe.
So the question would be, can the targets, if the targets can be met, the expectation of 30 million. So it will definitely help. So we have the CO2 standards. We have, that is true, a number of countries that have announced phase outs at the country level. We have at the city level, we have more and more low emission zones, and also some cities that have also set clear timelines to prohibit ICEs to enter certain parts of the city, like Milan or Brussels. So this is certainly helping. But on the other hand, we have to make sure that there is a joint European strategy when we talk about phase outs, because what could happen is that the dirtier cars are sold in those countries which don't have phase out targets in place. So this would basically mean that when we talk about national targets or phase outs, and I think it's in discussion to have a European wide target, and this also applies to the city level, to avoid that this is just shifted and then the targets can't be met.
Okay, thank you.
Philippe, if I may maybe add to that from the Commission perspective. So I think it's an interesting question, and obviously a lot will depend on the policies that those member states set in place to foster electromobility or other zero emission solutions. But we can certainly see that the member states or EU or European countries, such as, for example, Norway, which already have a very high share of electric vehicles in the newly purchased fleet, that they are indeed putting in place the right incentives and the right policies to ensure that such a phase out of ICE is definitely possible in the time horizons that are now proposed, 2030, 2040. So I think there's little doubt about that. It's only a question about setting the right, let's say, setting the right policies in place, and it's a combination of the right policies indeed to make sure that it's possible.
Yeah, maybe I can add on that, because the next question usually is how to finance it, these incentives in the transition phase, because some countries like EIT exemptions or very significant reductions on registration tax has to be co-financed. And so this is a very strong policy. And so it is helpful to have bonus models like vehicle taxes in place when we talk about bridging the cost gaps, like in France or like in Sweden, to co-finance also the incentives to contribute to a higher share of electric vehicles among new passenger car registrations.
Thank you very much. I think we can conclude from here. Yeah, it's good to see that we have indeed countries that are contributing very well, and that we have a good race of cars coming on the road, electric cars in this case. Therefore, we have a next topic, the public charging, how that is going on today. Ironically, we called it a bit today's jungle, and we will give a short introduction why this is. Some of you are really working in this field, so I'm gladly to hear your insights on this or your opinion. It can be a commercial point of view, it can also be a customer point of view. So feel free to drop your comments. So yeah, indeed, we profiled two different type of persons, and they are new EV owners. So we have, in this case, Jane. She's a married, happy woman with kids, has an IT career with travel obligations. She loves to go on holidays, especially with her new EV, and she's engaged with hobbies and lives in country X. Paul is married, Matthias Min, between now grandchildren. He's on pension, and he meets mostly friends in town and lives in country Z. So those two people have made a big change, and they're driving electric and are happy to contribute to a green future for their kids, and in this case, even the grandchildren. So they get handed over their car, they got a lot of information. You also have to say that some EVs are very well developed with high-tech solutions. So they start to drive around, and yeah, it's a different habit. It's a famous change from gas or petrol stations to electric charging stations. So in the beginning, Jane is a bit confused about the charging time. So she doesn't understand why it sometimes takes 6 hours and sometimes it only takes 20 minutes. So she didn't really get the information what the difference is between the different standards of charging compared to what she was used to do in the normal car, the petrol, not normal, in petrol car, where you fill up your car and there is a fixed time frame. Paul is a bit more confused about the connector types. He doesn't understand what the different types mean, and is confused about type 1, type 2, and he's on the public charge point. He sees even another type that doesn't fit in his car. For the insiders, this is our famous Dynamo connector, of course. So they both go on the roads, and Jane has a charger at work, and she's of course very interested in the possibilities to charge a car, and she's looking for the best apps and cards that are available on the market in her country. So Jane has made a decision, and she has now 5 cards where she can charge her car with, and we just call these cards here blue, green, red, yellow, and orange. These all operators have a different scheme, so she has chosen them on the kind of purpose that she thinks it is interesting. Paul, he decided to install a home charger just at his garage. He received a charge card from company Red, which is being delivering when he got his new car on the market. So they're very happy, and they started to drive around. So in the daily use, in the coming months, Jane charges her electric vehicles often at home. She also has a work charging opportunity. She learned very fast to use opportunity charging, and if she's traveling around for private or business cases, she used the fast charging opportunities when necessary. Paul has different profile, of course, and has a different kind of use, and it has a limited use. So he drives at home, but also discovered that he can charge at the supermarket, maybe for free, who knows. Paul is discovering something uncomfortable. He's visiting an old friend, drives a bit further than he has usual to do, and when he does this trip, he's sure that he cannot make the round trip without charging. Now, Paul is stuck. He doesn't have a smartphone. He only has a debit card. He's relying on the GPS of his car, and Paul has discovered when he arrives with his friend that he didn't have the possibility to charge. But he has a famous granite charger. Also questioning how that he has to use that. It was delivered with the car, but with the help of the dealer, he finds out that he can charge with his friend at home at the ordinary socket. And yeah, it's of course a nice opportunity to talk a bit longer about his new EV experience. Jane has, of course, a completely different profile. She has a smartphone, she has using her apps, but suddenly the company accountant says, your EV is very nice, but I get invoices and I don't understand these invoices. So when they are taking a bigger insights in these invoices, they see prices per kilowatts. Sometimes with a session fee, sometimes they see prices per time frame. There's also operators that use kilowatt hours and time. Finally, there is kilowatt hour time and a session fee. And there's also sessions with a fixed price. So they are pretty confused from what I'm actually doing. What price do I pay now for every driven 100 kilometers? So if you look at both profiles, which is only 2 unique profiles, there is many more. Jane, she has no idea how much she pays at home. She just plugs in. It goes from the counter that they both have installed at home. At work, there is a dedicated system with famous tags. So there is an invoicing system per user. But public charging points for her are really an unknown factor, and she discovered that there's actually no system. For Paul, it's more or less the same effect at home. It goes from his electricity bill to has no actually idea in this case, because it's a very simple home charger, how much he paid. Supermarket, he discovered that it's free, so he's very happy with that. But the received card, which he has activated, he has actually not really further ideas how it's going on. So if you look further and to the 2 profiles, and we look at the charging prices per country, then we see that Jane in her country X, the operator blue charges a fixed price per minute. Operator green has variable price depending on the charging speed. Operator red has a variable price per kilowatt hour, and he adds pricings after certain times. There is many operators in their country, so different pricing. Same for the country from Paul. Charging operator blue has also a price per minute. It's a different price. Operator green has a variable fixed price per session, and then the kilowatt hour price, and so on. So you see that both countries operators have different pricing schemes in this case. So Jane takes the challenge to travel abroad. So she goes a step further and she's traveling to the country of Paul. So what does she discover? That the operator blue actually doesn't work abroad. So there is no possibility to charge with that card. The operator red has the same tariffs as always. So she's quite confident in that. So there is no surprises in this case. Then the green charge for extra for the use abroad. That's a surprise, but finally, the yellow operator charges the same as Paul, which has to charge, so that sounds pretty fair. And card orange doesn't work, but she doesn't find any explanation. She's indeed doing this exercise, and she's looking at the prices at the operator points themselves. So then also there is a kind of different schemes. So operator blue has a display which offers also ad hoc payment with wireless bank cards. So it's a very positive experience. Operator red has a sticker with the tariffs. If they're updated or not, we have no clue about. Operator green gives information by using the application. Operator yet has a QR code, so she can scan the QR code and find out the prices that way. And operator orange just offers a help desk, but within a limited time frame. Paul is also interested to travel abroad, but he wants even to do several countries. So he's not so well experienced as our IT colleague, so he doesn't really find out the price he will or wants to pay. He's relying on his car's GPS. He doesn't have a credit card and he doesn't have a smartphone, so he has a big handicap in this case. And he's interested in more operators, but he found out that operator blue and green only work with apps, and as he doesn't have a smartphone, he cannot use operator blue and green. Operator orange and red only accept credit cards, so also those ones he cannot use, unfortunately. So if we take a further look of Europe in this case, and without naming names on the countries, it's a bit black in transparency terms or in understanding the tarifications that are being used. So we should actually go using the color schemes of the different operators. Yeah, some have an overlap, some are compatible, some are not. And yeah, driving around in Europe, it's more a challenge than it is with the normal petrol car. So on the customer's point of view, as mentioned, Paul and Jen are only two profiles of the so many different people that exist. Luckily, we are diverse, but yeah, tarifications. How should price be displayed? Should price be available with one access point? That is one universal access point where you can find all of kind of tarifications. Should be maybe more transparency on the prices. Should it be only one possibility? For example, is price per kilowatt hour the best way? An optional cost when you are not charging could be ideal to have those people that keep occupying charging points without using it. Do we need more choice of payment options? Ad hoc payments is sometimes mentioned. Do we need more of this? Or question marks from the customer point of view. It's also a question about the roaming side. Seamless traveling in Europe. Maybe I can travel with my bank card and pay a lot of services in Europe, but I cannot do this for charging. Should we actually go to the same options as we have with mobile phones? Should we oblige the operators to go to the same system of roaming options? So there's a lot of questions that are raised for the moment. We definitely see improvement areas. So we have to put the customer at the heart of the charging system. If we want to succeed, we see big ambitions of different policy layers from local governments, from the European Commission, the European Green Deal. If we want to make electric vehicles successful, we really have to look at the consumer. So there should be a transparent and non-discriminatory pricing system. Consumer assistance is really key as well. informing the user is really key. It has to be done on different levels, not only on charging infrastructure. It starts already in the car dealership. Also, the quality of information should be up to date. It cannot happen that you get misinformation just because the information is outdated, for example. And an ease of payment is, of course, key. Whatever the system is, it should be very accessible and universal in the use. So I think we can conclude from here. We have more details in the study that we have already discussed maybe in the previous one, but it's an ongoing topic. I saw this week, I got information shared by Floris, but there was a study done by a user organization in Germany, and they found out that only in Germany, there is 176 different tarifications possible on charging. And that doesn't mean that you have them available in all Germany. No, it depends where you live that you're lucky to have a good pricing or a bad pricing system. But 176 different tarifications sounds really, yeah, a bit too much of the good thing. So happy to hear your remarks and comments, if they are, of course. So far, I don't see anything. If one other of the panelists has to share some insights of this, please be my guests. Floris, you want to comment on something?
I just saw that there's one remark from Olivier coming in. Multiple charging points in a station would ease the customer anxiety as there is always a solution. That's very, very true. We're actually in the middle of doing a little bit of research for traveling from the Netherlands towards the south of France that a lot of Dutch people, but also probably Belgian people do in their holidays. What you see is that you had a lot of chargers in France that would only have one 50 kilowatt charger, DC charger available at a gas station on the highway, for instance. But if there's only one, it could be queued up, it could be broken, maybe your charge card doesn't work there. And if you planned your route in such a way that you were dependent on that charger and it doesn't work, well, then you really have a problem. So what we see with Tesla and also Ionity, that they have at least 4 different chargers, 4 stalls at each charging station. That's much better, of course. And I saw a picture on the internet from last Saturday in the south of France that even 4 stalls of an Ionity station were already occupied at the same time. So even 4 on busy days, even when it's not even August yet. So not really holiday season, seems already not enough at sometimes.
Right, for sure.
That was Felix, indeed. It was his picture. Yeah.
We definitely need more charging infrastructure on the roads. That will be key to the success and takes away a lot of anxiety as well.
Maybe also to respond a bit to your presentation, also Philippe, on behalf of the Commission. So it's of course it's not a surprise that we have asked you to look at these prices, because first of all, we are of course very well aware that there are, let's say, issues in terms of price transparency throughout Europe. It's something we are looking into closely also as part of the announced revision of the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive. For those who have responded to the open public consultation, they will have seen that there were a number of questions on price transparency. So this is something we will aim to tackle with the revision of the directive. Also, of course, the other reason why we asked you to look at to look into this as part of the paper is also because We want to see that the electromobility market develops as a competitive market, and obviously a strong indicator is the pricing and the pricing in different regions of Europe where let's say electromobility is developed in different at different speeds. So this is something we're also looking into very closely.
It's anyway good to see that there is a higher development of infrastructure. So the raise of interest of the industry players is of course very welcome, and it's very necessary to address the future plan to have more electric vehicles on the road. So I'm very happy to see that this is also happening. So I hope that this can be a shared initiative to address the needs for the future EV drivers. There is definitely needs to improve this.
If I may, I would like to come back as well on another question that was a bit handled in Sandra's presentation as well about the uptake of EVs and charging infra. What I also wanted to share with you all is that we did a massive overhaul on the incentive pages on EAFO. So for all the countries in Europe, we have updated the current incentives that are available. So that will also give you an idea of especially what has been happening lately in the last weeks or months, where maybe also caused a bit by Corona, but also maybe the Green Deal circumstances, that a lot of incentives were updated, and a lot of countries are now having more subsidies or better incentives for EVs, but also for charging infra. So you'll find those on the country pages of EAFO.
Okay, good. I think we can conclude from here. Thank you for the interest. Thank you to all the speakers. Happy to have you here. I hope to see you in the future on other webinars coming up, organized by ourselves or other partners. Look forward to see you soon. Have a nice summer holidays if you're leaving soon. If not, be connected back in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you.
Thanks.